In this lesson, we're going to be talking about project charter. And the question that comes to mind is, what is a project charter? So a project charter is a formal document that authorizes the start of a project. You can see that this document is actually very important part of any project initiation process, because without it, you can't authorize the start of a project. It contains critical information that gives perspective to all stakeholders involved in a project. So, a project sponsor who is responsible for the overall success of the project, in terms of they are going to put the budget for the project, set the budget of the project, and they would definitely want to get value on that investment. So when they hand over the project charter to the project manager, who then drives execution of the project to successful outcome, you know, they need to be able to provide enough information, enough context for the project manager to be able to deliver on that project objective. So you can see that this document is important to the overall project execution. Now, a project charter would typically contain things like project objective, the scope, the stakeholder, the timeline, and other key elements that you need to be able to drive a project to a successful outcome. You might ask, like, why are all this information important? For example, if you don't know the reason for a thing, right? If you don't know the objective, what we're trying to achieve, you can't execute that project to a successful outcome. If you don't know how much work or what the requirements are in terms of scope, right? So, for example, the effort required to build a 3-bedroom house will be different from one required for a 5-bedroom house, right? You see the point. And that is even a simplistic statement to say, because some 3-bedroom house can even be more complex than a 5-bedroom, depending on all the kind of features that the house will have. So all of those things would define the scope of the project. So it's important for you to at least have an idea on a high level what the project scope would look like. Also important consideration are things like stakeholders. Who are the people that this project will impact or have vested interest in this project? So you need to know your stakeholders to be able to work with them. We've defined how important stakeholders are in our previous lesson. Also, because projects are not an infinite concept, they have a start and end date. You need to know the timeline you have for the project. There are other key things like the budget, like how much are we going to spend on this, what are some of the risks and constraints that can impact on this project, that you would typically also find in a project charter. You would also find list of other assumptions that have been made, that needs to be considered as you work through the project. But you can already see that project charter is an important component, important document or artifact for you to be able to drive project to a successful outcome. So your role as a business analyst, you must know how to create one in collaboration with your project manager or project sponsor, depending on the context. And these are some of the critical components that you would need to include in your project charter. Things like the goal statement. What is the point of this document? What are we trying to achieve? Needs assessment, all of those kind of information can be found in project charter, at least on a high level. Timeline. How long do we have to execute this project? You can find that in your project charter. Scope, as I've defined earlier. Business case, like what is the justification for this, project? We would also discuss business case as we go along, but you want to know what the justification of the project is before you actually then spend money on this. This is also a business strategy too. Problem statement. What problem are we trying to solve? And that is also important for you in project context. Team members, as I mentioned, who are the people that will be working? Who are the people we need to be able to, implement this project successfully? So a typical case of building a website, you need to define, why are we building a website? It might be to drive more engagement, more brand visibility, to be able to sell more to your customer, and a lot of factors can impact you initiating a project to develop a website, and you know that you need approval, in terms of business case, how much are we going to spend? Does it make sense to build this website? Do we need to contract or build it now? So all of these important considerations can be found in a project charter.